Captain Li Bin stared at the view screen showing empty space. His ship, the Ascendant Dawn, drifted silently through the outer spiral region. This area was far from any civilized worlds where old ships came to die and forgotten things waited in the dark. "Captain, I'm getting strange readings," said Engineer Wansu from his station. His fingers moved quickly over the control panel. "There's something big out there, but it's not showing up on normal sensors." Li Bin walked over to Wansu's station. The engineer was young, but very smart. If he said something was strange, it usually was. "What kind of readings?" "Energy patterns I've never seen before." "They're very old, sir. Really old." Wansu looked up at his captain. "I think we found a derelict ship." Dr. Park Nari looked up from her research station. She was the ship's expert on alien life forms and how their minds worked. "How old are we talking about?" Wansu checked his instruments again. "Based on the energy decay, maybe millions of years." The bridge went quiet. In 50 years of being part of the Galactic Consaual, humans had found many old ships. But nothing that old. Most of the alien species in the Consaual had only been traveling in space for a few thousand years. "Commander Kim Tae, what do you think?" Li Bin asked his second-in-command. Kim Tae was a careful man who always thought about danger first. "It could be a trap, sir. Some of the other species don't like humans very much. They might have put something out here to hurt us." Li Bin nodded. This was true. Humans were the newest members of the Consaual. Most alien species thought humans were too violent and stupid to be trusted. They gave humans the worst trade deals and the most dangerous jobs. "But if it's really that old," Park Nari said, "it could be from a species we've never met. Think about what we could learn." Wansu's instruments beeped loudly. "Sir, I'm getting a clearer picture now. It's huge, at least 3 times bigger than our ship. And the design, I've never seen anything like it." Li Bin made his decision. "Set course for the derelict. But keep our weapons ready and our shields up." The Ascendant Dawn moved slowly toward the mysterious ship. As they got closer, the view screen showed them something amazing. The derelict ship was made of a strange crystal-like material that seemed to glow with its own light. It had smooth curves instead of straight lines, and parts of it seemed to float without being connected to anything. "Incredible," Park Nari whispered. "The whole ship seems to be made from some kind of living crystal." "I'm not reading any life signs," Wansu reported. "But there's definitely power running through some parts of the ship. Very low level, like emergency power." Kim Tae studied the tactical display. "No weapons that I can see, and no signs that anyone has been here recently." Li Bin watched the alien ship for several minutes. It was beautiful and strange at the same time. "Can we dock with it?" "There's an opening on the lower section that looks like it might be a docking port," Wansu said. "It's not like anything in our databases, but I think I can make it work." "Do it. But everyone stays armed. Park Nari, I want you to bring your xenobiology equipment. If this ship is as old as we think, there might be records or artifacts that could teach us about whoever built it." The docking took almost an hour. The alien ship's docking port was very different from human designs, but Wansu managed to create a seal. The airlock showed that the alien ship had breathable air, which was surprising for something so old. Li Bin led the team onto the derelict ship. Their boots made soft sounds on the crystal floor. Everything around them glowed with a soft blue light. The walls were covered with symbols that moved and changed as they watched. "These markings," Park Nari said, running her scanner over them. "They're not just decorations. I think they're some kind of information storage system." The team moved deeper into the ship. The corridors were wide and tall, made for beings much larger than humans. In the center of the ship, they found a huge room filled with crystal pillars that reached from floor to ceiling. "This looks like a computer core," Wansu said, "but it's like nothing I've ever seen. The crystals seem to be processing information, but I can't understand how." Park Nari approached one of the smaller pillars. Her scanner was going crazy with readings. "These crystals aren't just computers. They're storing something else, something that feels almost alive." Kim Tae kept watch while the scientists worked. "How long has this ship been here?" Wansu checked his instruments. "Based on the dust patterns and energy decay, at least 5 million years. Maybe longer." 5 million years, Li Bin repeated. "That's from before any of the current Consaual species developed space travel." "Who were these people?" Park Nari was studying the crystal pillars more closely. "I'm getting some kind of response from this one. It's almost like it knows I'm here." She reached out and touched the crystal. The moment her fingers made contact, the entire room lit up. The symbols on the walls began moving faster and a sound like singing filled the air. "Park Nari, step back," Kim Tae shouted, raising his weapon. But Park Nari couldn't move. The crystal was pulling information directly from her mind, and at the same time it was sending information back. Images flashed through her thoughts. She saw the builders of this ship, tall, graceful beings with large eyes and crystal-like skin. She saw them working together, building ships like this one, searching the galaxy for something important. The images changed. She saw the crystal beings discovering other species across the galaxy. Most of these species had minds that worked in fixed patterns. They were smart, but they could only think in certain ways. The crystal beings were looking for something different. They were looking for a species with minds that could change and grow in ways others couldn't. More images flowed through Park Nari's mind. She saw the crystal beings. The Vorlak, their name came to her suddenly, testing different species. None of them had what the Vorlak were looking for. The images became sad and desperate. The Vorlak were running out of time. Something was coming. Something that threatened all life in the galaxy. Then the images changed again. Park Nari saw humans. The Vorlak had found humans long ago when humans were still living in caves. They had studied human minds and found something amazing. Human consciousness was different from every other species. It could change and adapt in ways that seemed impossible. The crystal released her and Park Nari stumbled backward. But something had changed inside her mind. She could feel it growing, expanding. She could suddenly sense the thoughts of her teammates, even though she had never been telepathic before. "Park Nari, are you okay?" Li Bin caught her as she swayed. I'm fine," she said, but her voice sounded different. "No, I'm better than fine. I can see so much." She looked around the room and suddenly understood everything. The crystals weren't just computers. They were consciousness amplifiers. They were designed to enhance the minds of beings who had the right kind of mental structure. And humans, uniquely among all known species, had exactly the right kind of minds. "We need to get back to the ship," Park Nari said. "I need to analyze what just happened. This technology, it's meant for us. The Vorlak built it for humans." As they left the alien ship, Park Nari could feel her new abilities growing stronger. She could sense the emotions of her crewmates. She could feel the electronic signals running through the ship's computers. Most amazing of all, she could sense other minds far away, other humans on distant ships and planets. Back on the Ascendant Dawn, Park Nari tried to explain what had happened to her. The Vorlak technology doesn't just enhance intelligence. It enhances consciousness itself. It allows the mind to expand beyond the physical brain. Li Bin listened carefully. "What does this mean for humanity?" "It means we're not what we thought we were," Park Nari said. "We're not just another species stumbling around in space. We're something the Vorlak spent millions of years searching for. We have the potential to become something more." Wonsu was examining the data they had collected from the alien ship. "Captain, there are more ships like this one. The Vorlak left them hidden throughout the galaxy. They're all waiting for someone with the right kind of mind to activate them." Kim Tae looked worried. "What happens when the Consaual finds out about this? They already don't trust humans. If they learn that we have access to technology that could make us more powerful." Li Bin knew his second-in-command was right to be concerned. The other species in the Consaual barely tolerated humanity as it was. If they learned that humans could use ancient technology to enhance their abilities, they would see it as a threat. "We'll report our findings to Earth first," Li Bin decided. "Let our own scientists study this before we tell the Consaual anything." But as the Ascendant Dawn headed home, Park Nari continued to change. Her new abilities were growing stronger by the hour. She could now sense electromagnetic fields and manipulate small objects with her mind. She was becoming something new, something that had never existed before in the galaxy, and she was just the beginning. Ambassador Choi Dan stood in the Great Hall of Nexus Prime, the capital world of the Galactic Consaual. The building was massive, with walls that reached so high they disappeared into clouds. Representatives from hundreds of alien species filled the chamber, their strange forms and colors creating a sea of diversity that still amazed him after years of diplomatic work. At the center of the hall sat Chancellor Vextor, the reptilian leader of the Consaual High Council. His scales were deep green with gold markings that showed his high rank. His eyes were cold and calculating as they fixed on the human ambassador. "So, Ambassador Choi Dan," Vextor's voice rumbled through the hall, You claim your species has discovered ancient technology that enhances consciousness. A bold claim from such a young species. Choi-Dan kept his voice calm and respectful. Yes, Chancellor. We have found several ships belonging to an extinct species called the Vorlak. Our scientists have confirmed that this technology can safely enhance human mental abilities. Murmurs spread through the assembly. Some species made sounds of disbelief, others of concern. The Zephyrians, with their flowing tentacle-like appendages, whispered among themselves in their musical language. The rock-like Gordani made grinding sounds that indicated displeasure. Admiral Kosara, the military commander of the Consaual defense fleet, stepped forward. She was tall and thin, with gray skin and forearms. Her species, the Veltar, were known for their strategic thinking and distrust of other races. This technology you describe, Kosara said, it could be dangerous. Ancient weapons often appear harmless at first. For the safety of the galaxy, all Vorlak artifacts should be turned over to Consaual scientists for proper study. Choi-Dan had expected this demand. With respect, Admiral, humans discovered these artifacts in unclaimed space. According to Consaual law, the discoverer has first rights to study and understand what they find. Chancellor Vextor's tail swished with irritation. Consaual law also states that potentially dangerous technology must be controlled by the central authority. We have decided that this Vorlak technology falls into that category. Based on what evidence? Choi-Dan asked. Our scientists have found no weapons among the Vorlak artifacts. The technology appears to be designed for consciousness enhancement only. That is exactly what makes it dangerous, Vextor replied. Enhanced consciousness could lead to enhanced aggression. Humans are already known for their violent tendencies. Giving them more mental power would be irresponsible. The hall filled with agreement sounds from many species. Choi-Dan felt anger rising in his chest, but he kept his expression neutral. This was exactly the kind of prejudice humans faced every day in the Consaual. Chancellor, I request that you review the data our scientists have gathered. Dr. Parknari, who underwent the first enhancement, has shown no signs of increased aggression. In fact, her enhanced abilities seem to have made her more aware of the connections between all living beings. One test subject proves nothing, Admiral Kosara said. We demand that all Vorlak technology be surrendered immediately. Any human who has been exposed to this technology must report to Consaual medical facilities for evaluation. Choi-Dan stood straighter. I'm afraid I cannot agree to those terms. Humanity has the right to study technology found in our exploration of unclaimed space. The chamber erupted in angry sounds. Several species began shouting demands in their own languages. Chancellor Vextor raised his hand for silence. Then humanity has chosen to defy the will of the Consaual, Vextor said. Very well. Effective immediately, all human trade routes through Consaual space are suspended. All human colonies outside your home system are placed under quarantine. Any human vessel found outside designated areas will be impounded. Choi-Dan felt his heart sink. These sanctions would cripple human expansion and trade. Chancellor, surely we can find a compromise. The compromise is simple, Vextor replied. Surrender the technology and submit to Consaual authority, or face the consequences of defying the galactic community. Meanwhile, on the human research station orbiting the moon, Dr. Yun-Hai prepared for her own transformation. She was Parknari's research partner and had watched her friend's amazing changes over the past weeks. Parknari could now read emotions from across the station, move objects with her mind, and process information at incredible speeds. Are you sure about this? Parknari asked. The transformation is intense. I can feel your nervousness even from here. Yun-Hai smiled. That's exactly why I need to do this. If more humans don't undergo the enhancement, you'll be alone with abilities no one else can understand. The Vorlak crystal they had brought back from the derelict ship sat in a special chamber designed to contain its energy. Unlike Parknari's accidental contact, this would be a controlled process. They had learned much about how the technology worked over the past weeks. The Vorlak crystals don't force change, Parknari explained. They respond to the user's consciousness and enhance whatever potential already exists. Every human seems to develop different abilities based on their personality and interests. Yun-Hai entered the chamber and placed her hands on the crystal. Unlike the wild activation that had happened to Parknari, this time the process was gentle and controlled. The crystal began to glow and Yun-Hai felt her consciousness expanding. Where Park Nari had developed telepathy and telekinesis, Yun-hai found herself understanding space and time in new ways. She could see the curves in space-time that gravity created. She could sense the quantum fluctuations that happened everywhere in the universe. Incredible, she whispered. I can see how space bends around massive objects. I think I can manipulate it. To test her new abilities, Yun-hai focused on a small area of space near her hand. Reality seemed to fold, and suddenly her hand was touching a wall on the other side of the room without her arm stretching. She had created a fold in space that connected two distant points. Park Nari watched in amazement. Space-time manipulation. The theoretical physicists always said it was possible, but to actually see it? This is just the beginning, Yun-hee said. I can feel so much more potential. With practice, I might be able to fold space across vast distances. Instant travel between star systems. News of the Consaual sanctions reached the research station later that day. Captain Li Bin called an emergency meeting with his senior staff. The situation is worse than we expected, he told them. The Consaual isn't just demanding our technology. They're treating us like criminals for refusing to hand it over. Won-Su looked angry. They're afraid of us. They've always looked down on humans, and now they're scared that we might become more than they are. Commander Kim Tae nodded grimly. The sanctions will hurt, but they also prove something important. The other species see this technology as a real threat to their power. That means it's even more valuable than we thought. Dr. Park Nari, whose enhanced senses could feel the emotions of everyone in the room, spoke carefully. There's something else to consider. The Vorlac technology isn't just about individual enhancement. I've been studying the crystal's data storage, and I think they designed it to create connections between enhanced minds. What kind of connections? Li Bin asked. A network. Enhanced humans could share thoughts and knowledge instantly across any distance. Imagine if every human scientist, engineer, and explorer could work together as if they were in the same room, even if they're on different planets. The implications were staggering. Such a network would make humanity incredibly powerful, both scientifically and militarily. No wonder the Consaual is scared, Kim Tae said. A species with instant communication and consciousness enhancement would have advantages they could never match. Yun-hai, still getting used to her new abilities, created another small fold in space. It's not just about advantages over other species. This technology could help humanity solve problems we've never been able to handle before. Faster than light travel, unlimited energy, maybe even ways to prevent aging and disease. Reports began coming in from other human colonies and ships. Word of the sanctions was spreading, and so was word of the Vorlac technology. Many humans were angry about the Consaual's treatment of their species. Some were calling for humanity to withdraw from the galactic community entirely. But more importantly, volunteers were coming forward to undergo the enhancement process. Scientists, military officers, engineers, and explorers all wanted to experience the transformation that Park Nari and Yun-hai had undergone. We need to be careful, Li Bin warned. If we enhance too many people too quickly, the Consaual might see it as preparation for war. Park Nari's enhanced awareness could sense the fear and anger spreading through human space. Captain, I don't think we have a choice about being careful anymore. The Consaual has already decided we're a threat. They're not going to change their minds no matter what we do. Then what do you suggest? Kim Tae asked. We continue the enhancements, but we also prepare for the possibility that the Consaual won't be satisfied with sanctions. Admiral Kosara was studying military options during the council session. I could sense her tactical thinking even from across the chamber. Won-Su checked his communications equipment. I'm getting reports from our scouts near the border. Consaual military ships are gathering in larger numbers than usual. The Consaual war fleet stretched across space like a metal storm cloud. 3,000 ships from dozens of species had gathered at the edge of human territory. Admiral Kosara stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the tactical displays that showed human space beyond the border. Status report, she commanded her officers. All fleet elements are in position, reported her tactical officer. We have heavy cruisers from the Veltar homeworld, battle carriers from the Zephyrian colonies, and siege ships from the Gordani mining worlds. Total firepower is estimated at 15 times the strength of the entire human fleet. Kosara nodded with satisfaction. The humans had made their choice when they refused to surrender the Vorlac technology. Now they would face the consequences of defying the galactic order. Any movement from human forces she asked. Minimal, Admiral. Only a small patrol group of 12 ships near their border station. They seem to be waiting for us. Kosara found this strange. Intelligence reports suggested that humans had been enhancing more of their people with the alien technology, but they weren't massing ships for defense. Either they were supremely confident, or they had a plan the Consaual couldn't detect. On the human side of the border, General Nam Jun floated weightless in the command center of his flagship. But floating wasn't quite the right word anymore. Since his enhancement 3 weeks ago, Nam Jun no longer needed to worry about gravity or life support. His consciousness could exist independently of his physical body, though he still preferred to maintain human form when dealing with others. General, the Consaual fleet is moving, reported Captain Shinbo from the pilot station. Like Nam Jun, Shinbo had undergone the Vorlak enhancement. Her abilities had focused on technology integration. She could merge her consciousness with computer systems and starship controls. How many ships? Nam Jun asked, though his enhanced senses could already detect the massive fleet approaching. 3,047 vessels, Shinbo replied. They're maintaining standard formation. They don't know what we're capable of. Nam Jun almost felt sorry for them. The Consaual fleet was using traditional tactics against an enemy that no longer followed traditional rules. Signal the other ships. Begin the demonstration. The 12 human ships moved forward to meet the massive alien fleet. To outside observers, it looked like complete madness. How could 12 ships face 3,000 and hope to survive? Admiral Kosara watched the human ships approach with confusion. Are they surrendering? Why else would so few ships advance against our entire fleet? Her tactical officer studied the sensors. Admiral, I'm getting strange readings from the human vessels. Their energy signatures are unusual, elaborate. It's like the ships themselves are alive. The power flows don't match any known technology. Kosara frowned. Impossible. They're just ships with crews. But as the human vessels drew closer, something extraordinary began to happen. Captain Shinbo, aboard the lead human ship, merged her consciousness fully with her vessel's systems. The ship became an extension of her mind, responding to her thoughts rather than manual controls. The other enhanced human captains did the same. 12 ships suddenly moved with perfect coordination, as if controlled by a single mind. They began to phase in and out of normal space using Yunhai's space-time manipulation techniques that had been shared through the consciousness network. Admiral, the tactical officer shouted. The human ships just disappeared from sensors. Find them, Kosara ordered. The human ships reappeared directly in the middle of the Consaual formation. This should have been impossible. No ship could travel that distance instantaneously, and certainly not while maintaining perfect positioning. General Nam Jun's voice came through every communication system in the Consaual fleet simultaneously. His enhanced consciousness didn't need radio waves to send messages. Admiral Kosara, I am General Nam Jun of the Human Colonial Defense Force. You have brought a fleet to threaten human space based on fear and prejudice. We will now demonstrate why your fears are misplaced. How are you communicating with us? Kosara demanded. Our channels are encrypted. Encryption is irrelevant when consciousness can interface directly with any electronic system, Nam Jun replied calmly. We're not here to destroy your fleet. We're here to show you that humanity has evolved beyond the need for traditional warfare. What happened next would be remembered throughout the galaxy for centuries. General Nam Jun focused his enhanced abilities on the matter that made up the Consaual ships. His consciousness could perceive and manipulate atomic structures as easily as a human hand could move pieces on a chessboard. The weapons on the nearest Consaual battleship began to change. Metal flowed like water, reshaping itself. Missile launchers became sculptures of dancing figures. Energy cannons transformed into flowering trees made of crystallized metal. The changes spread from ship to ship as Nam Jun's consciousness touched each vessel. What's happening to our weapons? Kosara's crew reported in panic. They're being restructured at the molecular level, the science officer replied, his voice shaking with disbelief. The human is changing matter itself. But Nam Jun wasn't finished. Captain Shinbo and the other enhanced humans began their own demonstrations. Ships that tried to retreat found themselves moving backward instead of forward as the enhanced humans manipulated their navigation systems. Vessels that attempted to fire their remaining weapons discovered that their energy was being redirected into harmless light shows. On the human colony world of New Sol, Scientist Li Yu was ready to begin her most ambitious project yet. She had spent weeks preparing a consciousness enhancement network that could reach an entire planet. Unlike the individual transformations that had happened before, this would create a collective enhancement affecting millions of people at once. "Are you certain this is safe?" asked President Ko Min via secure communication. "We're talking about altering the consciousness of every volunteer on the planet." Li Yu checked her equipment one final time. "The Vorlac technology scales perfectly. Individual enhancement, small groups, large populations, the principles remain the same. Each person will retain their individual identity while gaining access to shared knowledge and abilities." "Begin the process," President Ko Min ordered. The enhancement wave spread across New Seoul like invisible lightning. 1 million volunteers had agreed to undergo the transformation simultaneously. As the Vorlac technology activated, their consciousness expanded and connected. The effect was immediate and profound. Scientists on one continent could instantly share their discoveries with engineers on another. Artists found their creativity enhanced by connection to thousands of other creative minds. Military planners could coordinate with perfect efficiency across the entire planet. But more importantly, the enhanced population of New Seoul could sense what was happening in the battle at the border. Through the consciousness network, they could feel the confusion and fear of the Consaual fleet. Back in space, Admiral Kosara was discovering that her fleet had become completely helpless. Her ships could no longer fire weapons, move in formation, or even communicate securely. The humans had taken control of every system without causing any real damage. "This is impossible," she whispered. "No species has this kind of power." General Namjoon's voice answered her unspoken thoughts. "Admiral, your species think of power in terms of destruction and control. Humanity has learned to think of power in terms of creation and connection. We don't want to destroy your fleet. We want you to understand that we've become something new." To prove his point, Namjoon began repairing damage that existed on several Consaual ships. Hull breaches that had occurred during routine operations were sealed. Worn-out systems were restored to perfect condition. Instead of harming the fleet, the humans were improving it. "We could have destroyed your entire fleet in the first moment of contact," Namjoon continued. "Instead, we've demonstrated that your weapons cannot harm us, your ships cannot escape us, and your technology cannot resist us. But we've also shown that we mean you no harm." Captain Shinbo added her voice to the communication. "Our consciousness can exist in multiple forms simultaneously. We are in your computers, in your communication systems, in the very atoms of your ships, yet we choose to use this power to create rather than destroy." The enhanced humans began to withdraw from the Consaual systems, returning control to the alien crews. But they left behind small changes: improved efficiency in the engines, better coordination in the navigation systems, enhanced clarity in the communication arrays. "Your fleet is now more capable than when you arrived," Namjoon announced. "This is our gift to you. We could have taken everything. Instead, we've given you improvements." Admiral Kosara stared at her tactical displays in shock. Every system on her ship was running better than it ever had. The humans had not only demonstrated overwhelming power, they had used that power to help rather than hurt. "Why?" she asked. "Why help us after we came here to attack you?" "Because that is what humanity chooses to do with power," Namjoon replied. "We could become conquerors, but we prefer to become guardians. We could rule through fear, but we choose to lead through example." The Consaual fleet began to withdraw, but the damage to their confidence was complete. 6 months had passed since the demonstration at the border. The galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. Billions of humans across hundreds of worlds had undergone the Vorlac enhancement. What had started as a small group of enhanced individuals had become a species-wide transformation. The collective voice on Sol stood in the center of the human council chamber on Earth, but standing wasn't quite accurate anymore. An Sol existed in multiple forms simultaneously, sometimes appearing as a normal human woman, sometimes as pure energy, and sometimes as patterns of light that danced through the air. She was preparing for the most important communication in human history. Every inhabited world in the galaxy would receive her message at the same moment, transmitted not through radio waves or subspace channels, but directly into the consciousness of every sentient being. "Are we ready?" asked President Ko Min, one of the few baseline humans still in government. Most enhanced humans found traditional politics too limiting, but they recognized the need for communication with unenhanced people. "The network is established," Consaual replied. Her voice came from everywhere and nowhere, carried by the consciousness field that now connected all enhanced humans. "Every enhanced human mind is linked and ready to broadcast. The message will reach every planet, every ship, every space station in the galaxy." Dr. Beck Wu watched from his laboratory as Consaual prepared for the transmission. His research had led to incredible breakthroughs in the past months. He had discovered that the Vorlac enhancement wasn't just about expanding consciousness. It was about freeing consciousness from the limitations of physical existence entirely. "The final transformation stage is ready," Beck Wu reported. "We can now exist as pure consciousness while maintaining our essential humanity. Physical form becomes optional rather than necessary." At that moment across the galaxy, every sentient being suddenly heard Consaual's voice in their mind. The words came not as sound, but as direct understanding that transcended language barriers. "People of the galaxy," Consaual's message began, "I am the collective voice of enhanced humanity. I speak for billions of minds that have chosen to grow beyond their original limitations while maintaining their core identity as human beings." On the Veltar homeworld, Admiral Kosara felt the alien voice in her head and shuddered with fear. Since the border incident, she had been preparing for this moment. The human demonstration had shown her that traditional military responses were useless against enhanced humans. "We do not seek to rule over you," Consaual's voice continued. "We do not desire to conquer your worlds or control your governments. Humanity has evolved beyond the need for dominion over others. We seek only to exist in peace and to help where we are welcomed." But the very power that made this galactic communication possible terrified many species. If humans could speak directly into every mind in the galaxy, what else could they do? The fear that had been building since the border demonstration now reached panic levels on many worlds. Warlord Krexith of the Gorthak Empire felt his rage growing as the human voice filled his mind. The Gorthak were a proud warrior species who believed that strength should rule the galaxy. The idea that humans, whom they had always considered weak, could simply impose their will on any mind in the galaxy was intolerable. "This cannot be allowed to continue," Krexith growled to his war council. "Today they speak to our minds without permission. Tomorrow they could control our thoughts entirely. The human threat must be eliminated before they become truly unstoppable." Similar conversations were happening throughout the galaxy. 12 major species, led by Krexith and the remnants of the Consaual military, began forming a secret alliance. They called themselves the Preservation Coalition, claiming they were working to preserve galactic civilization from human domination. Their plan was desperate but carefully coordinated. Scientists from all 12 species had been working together to develop weapons specifically designed to disrupt consciousness and psychic abilities. They couldn't match human power directly, but they hoped to find weaknesses in the enhancement technology. "The consciousness disruptors are ready," reported Chief Scientist Vexkala, a spindly insectoid being from the Zentari systems. "They emit frequencies that should interfere with the neural patterns created by the Vorlac technology." "How effective will they be?" asked Krexith. "Unknown," Vexkala admitted. "The humans have evolved so far beyond baseline consciousness that our models may be completely wrong. But this is our only hope." The Coalition fleet assembled in secret, using hidden bases and encrypted communications. They had learned from Admiral Kosara's failure. This time they would attack with everything they had, using every weapon at their disposal. But they had made a critical error. Enhanced humans could sense consciousness across vast distances. The moment the Coalition fleet began gathering, every enhanced human in the galaxy became aware of it. Dr. Bakwu called an emergency meeting with the other leading researchers. "They're planning to attack using consciousness disruptors. The energy signatures are crude but potentially dangerous to anyone still dependent on biological neural networks." "How many of our people could be affected?" asked Dr. Park Nari, whose abilities had continued to grow since her first transformation. "Anyone who hasn't achieved complete consciousness separation could be vulnerable," Beck Wu replied. "We estimate about 30% of enhanced humans still rely partially on their biological brains." It was at this moment that Lim Na made her choice. She had been one of the first volunteers for Beck Wu's experimental complete consciousness transfer. For weeks she had existed as pure thought and energy, maintaining human form only when she chose to interact with others. "I'll show them," Limna said simply. "I'll show the galaxy what humanity has truly become." Before anyone could ask what she meant, Limna's physical form dissolved into patterns of light and energy. But instead of disappearing, her consciousness expanded across space itself. In an instant, she was present on every inhabited world in the galaxy simultaneously. On Krexith's command ship, Limna appeared as a shimmering figure of light in the center of the bridge. The Gorthak warriors reached for their weapons, but their hands passed through her harmlessly. "Warlord Krexith," Limna's voice was calm and sad, "you gather weapons against humanity because you fear us, but your fear is based on misunderstanding. You speak directly into our minds without permission," Krexith roared. "You demonstrate powers that could destroy us all. How should we not fear you?" "Watch and understand," Limna replied. Throughout the galaxy, on every world where coalition forces were preparing for war, Limna began to demonstrate the true nature of enhanced humanity. She didn't attack or threaten. Instead, she healed. On a desert world where coalition troops were suffering from a plague that their medical science couldn't cure, Limna's consciousness reached into their cellular structures and repaired the damage. Thousands of soldiers found themselves healthy for the first time in months. On an industrial planet where pollution had made the air barely breathable, Limna restructured the atmospheric chemistry, removing toxins and restoring clean air. Millions of workers could suddenly breathe freely. On a farming world facing famine due to soil depletion, Limna revitalized the earth itself, restoring nutrients and fertility that would feed billions. This is what enhanced humanity chooses to do with unlimited power. Limna's voice reached every mind simultaneously. "We could conquer, but we heal. We could destroy, but we create. We could rule, but we serve." The coalition fleet found itself in chaos. Many crew members were questioning why they were preparing to attack beings who had just saved their homeworlds from disaster. The consciousness disruptors sat unused as soldiers and officers debated whether humanity was really a threat. But Krexith refused to be swayed. "Tricks and manipulation," he broadcast to his allies. "They make themselves appear benevolent to lower our guard. Attack now while we still can." The coalition fleet moved toward human space, their consciousness disruptors powering up. They represented the combined military might of 12 species, armed with weapons specifically designed to hurt enhanced humans. But as they approached the border, they discovered something that filled them with despair. The weapons didn't work. The consciousness disruptors had no effect on beings who existed as pure thought and energy. Enhanced humans began appearing throughout the coalition fleet, not as conquerors, but as helpers. They repaired damaged systems, healed injured crew members, and improved the efficiency of ship operations. Even as the coalition tried to attack them, the humans responded with kindness. "Fire all weapons," Krexith ordered desperately. The coalition ships opened fire with everything they had, but the energy beams passed harmlessly through the enhanced humans, who existed in dimensions beyond physical space. Meanwhile, the humans began to demonstrate their true power. Limna appeared directly in front of Krexith, her form now spanning multiple dimensions simultaneously. "Warlord, your weapons cannot harm us because we are no longer limited by physical existence. But more importantly, we choose not to harm you." "Why?" Krexith demanded. "We came here to destroy you." "Because destruction leads only to more destruction," Limna replied. Deep in the ruins of the ancient Vorlak homeworld, something that had been sleeping for millions of years suddenly awakened. The failed coalition attack had triggered automated systems that the Vorlak had hidden throughout the galaxy before their extinction. Dr. Bayek Wu was the first to detect the new signals. His enhanced consciousness could sense disturbances across multiple dimensions, and the activation of the Vorlak systems created ripples that reached every corner of space. "There's something else out there," he reported to the collective human consciousness. The Vorlak left more than just enhancement technology. They left a message. The signal was complex, carrying information that only enhanced minds could understand. As human consciousness touched the ancient transmission, images and knowledge flowed into their awareness. What they learned changed everything. They thought they knew about their transformation. The Vorlak archive consciousness materialized as patterns of crystalline light in the research stations. Throughout human space, it was not alive in any normal sense, but it carried the memories and knowledge of an entire species. "Greetings," Inheritors? The archive spoke directly to the enhanced human minds. We are the preserved wisdom of the Vorlak. We have waited millions of years for a species capable of receiving this message. Limna, still existing as pure consciousness across multiple worlds, was chosen to speak for humanity.
Why did you create the enhancement technology?
What were you trying to achieve? Survival, the archive replied. Not our survival, that was already lost. We created the technology to ensure that consciousness itself would survive what is coming. The archive began to share its memories with humanity. Images flowed through the collective consciousness showing the Vorlak at the height of their civilization. They had been peaceful explorers much like humans, seeking knowledge and understanding throughout the galaxy. Then they had encountered something that defied all understanding, a force from beyond the galaxy that consumed consciousness itself. It was not alive in any recognizable way, but it fed on intelligence and awareness, leaving behind empty shells of matter that had once held thinking beings. We called it the Void Hunger, the archive explained. It moves between galaxies, consuming all consciousness it encounters. We detected its approach to our galaxy millions of years ago and began searching for a species that could evolve beyond its reach. The images showed the Vorlak's desperate search across the galaxy. They had tested hundreds of species, trying to find minds that could transcend physical existence. Most species had consciousness that was too rigid, too bound to their biological origins. Only humans possessed the necessary mental flexibility, the archive continued. Your species could adapt and grow in ways that others could not. We designed the enhancement technology specifically for human consciousness. Dr. Park Nari, whose abilities had continued to evolve, asked the question that everyone was thinking. What happened to your species? If you created this technology, why didn't you save yourselves? We tried, the archive replied sadly. But we discovered the enhancement too late. The Void Hunger reached our galaxy before we could complete our own transformation. We managed to hide the technology and preserve our knowledge, hoping that someday another species would find it and succeed where we failed. The revelation sent waves of understanding through the enhanced human consciousness. Their transformation hadn't been an accident or a lucky discovery. It had been planned by a dying species as their final gift to the galaxy. When will this Void Hunger return? Asked Unified Speaker Han Ri, who had chosen to maintain physical form to serve as a bridge between enhanced and baseline humans. Soon, the archive replied. Our calculations suggest it will reach this galaxy within your next 100 years. But now there is hope. Enhanced humans exist beyond the reach of the Void Hunger. You can survive what destroyed us. But even as humanity processed this shocking information, the galaxy was struggling with a more immediate crisis. The failed coalition attack had left many species confused and fearful. Some, like the Gorthak under Warlord Krexith, still refused to accept that enhanced humans meant no harm. Chancellor Vexitor, the reptilian leader who had first rejected humanity's discoveries, found himself facing a choice that would define his species' future. Reports were coming in from throughout Consaual space of enhanced humans helping with disasters, healing the sick, and solving problems that had plagued their worlds for generations. They could have destroyed our fleet at the border, his military advisor reminded him. They could have conquered our worlds when we attacked them. Instead, they helped us. Perhaps we were wrong about their intentions. Vextor's pride made it difficult to admit error, but the evidence was overwhelming. Send a message to the human leadership. Request a meeting to discuss new arrangements. Similar conversations were happening throughout the galaxy. Species that had spent months preparing for war against humanity were beginning to realize that cooperation might be more beneficial than conflict. The firstborn Yang Mi, one of the most evolved enhanced humans, made a decision that would shape the future of galactic civilization. Rather than abandon physical reality entirely, she chose to remain as a guardian of the material universe. Consciousness can exist in many forms, Yang Mi announced to the galactic community. Enhanced humans will serve as bridges between the physical and transcendent realms. We will protect and guide those who choose to remain in traditional forms of existence. The establishment of the new compact began with a simple principle. Every species had the right to choose its own path of development. Enhanced humans would share their knowledge and abilities with those who requested help, but they would never force change on unwilling populations. Unified Speaker Han Ri worked tirelessly to create the new governmental structure. Unlike the old Consaual system, which was based on competition and hierarchy, the new compact was built on cooperation and mutual support. Enhanced humans will serve as guardians and counselors, Henri explained to the gathered representatives of hundreds of species. We offer our abilities to solve problems and prevent conflicts, but we will not rule over you. The new system worked in ways that seemed impossible under the old order. When natural disasters struck, enhanced humans could instantly appear to provide aid. When conflicts arose between species, transcended humans like Liam Na could facilitate understanding by allowing each side to experience the other's perspective directly. Most remarkably, enhanced humans began offering transformation technology to other species. But unlike the forced enhancement that many had feared, this was a carefully guided process that respected each species' unique nature. Not every species will develop the same abilities, Dr. Yoon Hai explained to a gathering of alien scientists. The Vorlak technology enhances whatever potential already exists within a consciousness. Each species will evolve in its own unique way. The first volunteer from another species was Keeper Jian Su, a Veltar diplomat who had worked closely with humans since the border incident. Her transformation was carefully monitored by both human and Veltar scientists. The result was fascinating. Where humans had developed abilities to manipulate matter and energy, Jiansu gained the power to perceive and influence probability itself. She could sense the likelihood of future events and gently guide circumstances toward better outcomes. Each species brings its own gifts to consciousness enhancement, Jiansu reported. Humans excel at adaptation and creation. Veltar minds seem naturally suited to probability and temporal perception. Together, we can achieve far more than either species could alone. As more species began to undergo guided enhancement, the galaxy transformed in ways no one had imagined possible. Enhanced beings from different species could share knowledge instantly across any distance. Problems that had seemed impossible became solvable when multiple forms of consciousness worked together. The old Consaual government officially dissolved, replaced by the Council of Conscious Beings. Representatives ranged from baseline biological entities to pure consciousness beings who existed beyond physical form. Decisions were made not through argument and negotiation, but through direct sharing of understanding and perspective. Captain Li Bin, now existing in multiple forms simultaneously, stood on the observation deck of a space station orbiting Earth. Through the transparent walls, he could see ships from dozens of species working together to build something unprecedented, a galactic civilization based on cooperation rather than competition. "Do you ever miss the old days?" asked Wan Su, who had chosen to maintain mostly human form despite his enhancement. Li Bin considered the question. "I miss the simplicity sometimes, but look what we've accomplished. Disease, poverty, and war are becoming things of the past. Species that have been enemies for millennia are working together. We're building something that will last for millions of years." Below them, on Earth's surface, baseline humans lived and worked alongside enhanced beings and alien visitors. Children played in parks where the grass grew in patterns that painted pictures visible from space, maintained by enhanced humans who found joy in creating beauty. Scientists from a dozen species collaborated on projects that would have been impossible before the transformation. The Vorlak would be proud, Wan Su observed.